Resident Evil Requiem celebrated its successful public demo premiere at Gamescom in Cologne. But not all fans are happy with what they saw. Some even claim that it's not Resident Evil at all, but just a hide-and-seek walking simulator with a stalker in it. In this video, you'll find out why I think that's not true at all, and how the trailer at Gamescom points us in a completely different direction. So, let's talk about it. Hey, I'm Andy, welcome to Rely on Horror. At Opening Night Live, host Geoff Keighley promised us a big surprise for Resident Evil 9. Not only was there a new trailer showing Alyssa and Grace Ashcroft together, but at Gamescom itself there was finally a demo available for all fans to play, which had previously only been accessible to selected journalists behind closed doors at Summer Game Fest. Many fans celebrated the new gameplay and trailer and waited in line for up to 6 or 7 hours to get their hands on the game. But not everyone was happy. There are many comments on YouTube from Resident Evil 9 videos that are very negative. People were complaining that this has nothing to do with Resident Evil anymore, that Resident Evil Requiem is nothing more than a glorified walking simulator. I think I need to clarify a few things here. Of course, there were many discussions and speculations behind closed doors at Gamescom, but considering how the director of Resident Evil 9 has structured his previous games, there may be some truth to it. The demo shows a frightened Grace Ashcroft who has to defend herself against a 10-foot-tall stalker enemy without a gun. With her blonde hair, the stalker looks suspiciously like her mother, Alyssa Ashcroft, who is said to have died many years ago. In the trailer presented at Gamescom, you see a young Grace with her mother fleeing from a brutal killer. It's obviously a flashback scene, which clearly shows that Resident Evil Requiem takes place in at least 2 different timelines. And I'm convinced that this will not be the only one. Nakanishi has done this several times in both Resident Evil Revelations and Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, and I have a feeling that he will do it even more this time. Alyssa died around 2018, so if we assume that Resident Evil Requiem takes place 1-2 years in the future, just like other Resident Evil games, then we have the second timeline around 2028, which would be 10 years later. Maybe it's 1 year earlier or later. Please don't hold me to that. However, I can't imagine that Grace will be playable in both timelines. Maybe for a very short time, but that wouldn't be Nakanishi's style. In Resident Evil Revelations, you played Jill Valentine, Chris Redfield, Parker Luciani, and Jessica Sherwood, as well as Keith Lumley and Quint Ketchum for a very short time. And in Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, Ethan Winters wasn't the only playable character either. Through a VHS tape that could be played, you slipped into the virtual skin of reporter Clancy Jarvis and later in the game Ethan's wife Mia Winters. Through the additional story DLCs Not a Hero and End of Zoe, you also took control of series veteran Chris Redfield and Zoe's uncle Joe Baker. Nakanishi really isn't the type to focus on just one playable character. In every story-driven game he directed, there have been multiple playable protagonists or supporting characters. So I think it's highly unlikely that Grace will be the only one. And yes, I think you'll also be able to play Alyssa briefly, as hinted in the Gamescom trailer, but I have my eye on a completely different person. I believe that the real main character of Resident Evil Requiem is Leon S. Kennedy, and that everything that has been happening so far is nothing more than a diversionary tactic similar to what Nakanishi did with the finger demo in Resident Evil 7, or the alleged Chris Redfield in Revelations who turned out to be fake in the end. But why Leon? Well, there are 3 reasons for that. First, the rumor has been circulating on the internet for quite some time now and is surprisingly persistent. Second, the well-known leaker Dusk Golem has confirmed it and written about it several times on Twitter, aka X. And third, Nakanishi himself mentioned it in an interview. Actually, it was the opposite, but hear me out. When Grace was introduced, there was an interview where he explicitly mentioned why Leon would not be suitable. Why didn't he choose several characters as examples? Why does he say so specifically that it's not Leon? It makes me more than skeptical, if you ask me. Even in the Finger demo, Resident Evil 7 Beginning Hour, you didn't play the main character Ethan Winters, but the journalist Clancy. I think it will be similar in Resident Evil Requiem. The first trailer from Summer Game Fest, the trailer from Opening Night Live, and the playable demo are only a small excerpt from the game and show parts of the beginning. I can imagine there will be sections where we also have to play with Grace and use guns. After all, the developers have talked about it, and there is artwork where Grace clearly has a pistol in her hand. But how does it all fit together? This is just a theory, but I think there's something special about Grace's blood. If the monster chasing us through the corridors is really Alyssa, then something must have gone wrong in an experiment with her. Why else would they have had to draw Grace's blood? I mean, in Resident Evil Outbreak you have the option of creating an antivirus called Daylight, an antidote to the T-virus that is in Alyssa's blood. So perhaps the mysterious hooded man thinks he has his back against the wall and can be victorious if he somehow uses Alyssa for the cure. But everything goes wrong. Alyssa becomes a monster and Grace is the last hope. And because Leon is somehow involved, as he always is, he has to intervene and save Grace. Maybe that's why he has to go back to Raccoon City under RPD. I mean, why would Grace return to a place she has no connection to? Questions upon questions and lots of speculation. We'll probably find out what's true when Resident Evil Requiem is released on February 27, 2026 at the latest. But the Tokyo Game Show is also coming up at the end of September and might offer us more insights. Maybe they'll show Leon as an slightly unshaven or older man, or with a receding hairline. Who knows? In any case, I'm firmly convinced that we are currently being led astray, and I love everything about it. But why am I telling you all of this? To give you hope in case you still have doubts. I believe Resident Evil 9 will be a fantastic game with a mix of the old parts and Resident Evil 7. But now, as always, I want to know your opinion on this. Did you play the demo at Gamescom or did you just watch the gameplay? Let us know in the comments and I'll see you in the next video.